Hello my brothers and sisters of the Order, welcome back to the Order. I'm Celtic Templar, and welcome back to another how-to video. This time we are covering none other than the, well, you guessed it, 4th to 8th century Roman Britannia. Now, when we think of the Roman Britons, we automatically think of them incredibly different compared to how what later centuries would portray them. Now, most people, when they think of the Roman Britons, automatically we think of Arthurian legend, which is one of my biggest loves about the tales of King Arthur, and ones I like to look up a lot more. Is one, when we take a look into many informative of Welsh poetry and Welsh history itself, it does give a lot of, well, Arthurian legend to it. So, what am I dressed as? Well, I am dressed as the Welsh Teulu, or Teulu, which are technically foot soldiers. Now, the evolution of this unit evolves in several ways. From, one, their helmet, their shields, their javelin weapons, and even their swords. How so, you might ask? Well, for one, I am wearing the equipment of the later period, by the time we reach the 7th to somewhere between the 6th to the 8th century. So, yeah. So, what about their other equipment that they had in the early periods? Well, for that, it would look a little more something like this. This would probably be the most accurate as I can get to. Now, the shield is obviously a Roman auxiliary, but it's the best we can actually use it for right now, as they would have still used oval shields for this time period. However, over time, this would slowly disappear throughout the centuries, as well the spear starts to get shorter and shorter, depending on the use of the combat. Now, why is there a huge difference between one variation of century and the other? Well, that's because of its weaponry that we use. For example, the earlier periods used probably pumbata, while the later periods used javelins. Now, another thing would also be my sword. This is the flat-handed style, late Roman style sword. And with this style of handle, it's all made of wood. By later centuries, they would have been made out of metal. Why? Kind of obvious. It would be a lot lighter than the sword handle. In other words, it's like this. Say for example, I want to do fancy tricks. Well, with this sword, not so much, because most of the weight is in the blade. If I had metal on the pommel, and as well the guard, then in doing so, this would be a lot lighter of a weapon. In fact, in later centuries, that's how it would be in most points. What do I mean by this? Well, to actually best sum it down, in the western border of Cornwall, a sword was discovered to have had a metal pommel and a metal guard. And in which originally people thought, okay, this is a Viking sword. That wasn't until further analysis proved otherwise. So, what equipment did the Welsh use? Well, it varied from user to user. As the Teulu were foot soldiers, and they had to buy their armor. In fact, this style of helmet, it evolved through several years from this beautiful design to no longer having designs on the helmet. In fact, over the years, they would also start to have these things without any cheek guards, or as well, without any neck guards. Other accounts also proclaim that they would even start to portray a nasal in the middle, but it depended on the user. And the fact is, these would have been passed down from father to son. Now, if we actually believe in the legends of King Arthur and the tales of Artorias and such, well, that's where I actually had to automatically read more books on the Chronicles of Britain and such, because one, if you read more into Welsh history, there's a lot of stories left in there. But, as you can tell with my equipment, I am supposed to be light and mobile to face off against the Saxon hordes that come to my shores. So, in doing so, this is probably the best accurate equipment you could probably use for combat close operations. Over the years though, the equipment would change, varied on the user. Reason being, one, because if none of y'all know the history on Roman Britain and such, there are various other styles of information I would recommend looking at, such as one book I have actually been looking at, which is The Tales of King Arthur and such, to hold the timeline to that close type of story. In which, we can also take a look at the Book of the Picts. Now, this is from osprey.com, I believe. I don't know if I mispronounced that anyway, but I recommend looking at these. A couple of these books I will leave down in the link down in the description, so that way y'all can, well, see for yourself whether or not it's a good buy or not. But yes, there is also the king. Besides this, the Kingdom of Wales, there is also the Kingdom of Strathclyde and the Kingdom of Cornwall, which were also Britannic kingdoms. A lot of people, though, sadly forget about these two, and probably as sad as it is to say, most people forget about Strathclyde. It's because one, Strathclyde was between the Kingdom of Elba, or the Kingdom of the Picts, and the Kingdom of Northumbria. Over the years, it would slowly be engulfed by the two. So, yeah. But as well, their equipment, like this helmet, still stayed. The problem is, over the years, it would have slowly evolved out of history. The same could be said about the Oval Shield. In fact, I think it was only like a couple of centuries before the Oval Shield went extinct and later got to the form of the Round Shield. But how about y'all watch me move around, and we can get right into this video, shall we? Well now, I hope you all liked that little bit of a video walkthrough. Now as y'all saw in this video, we were slowly losing armor in different variations in the video. Equipment we lost, equipment we gained. So why is this? Well, it can actually go to the fact that one, the Britons kind of in the process, after a certain point in time, started to go into infighting. In fact, there is an account from a Welsh monk by the name of Hartorius, or Hartorian. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that anyway. Anyways, it is stated that he had actually written in his text that he, quote, and I quote, after the death of certain kings and the region of the Britons, Hartorius, after he faded from legend, the people of the Britons started to battle one another, and as well for control over the region. In other words, drastic infighting. And in doing so, because of the infighting, guess what? The Welsh people started to become less rich and abundant. Since they were fighting each other, it gave the Saxons more chances to, well, invade. In fact, I am dressed in the very late attire of the Teulu warrior, or the Teulu soldier. This is the most under-equipped version I have ever heard. In fact, another chronicle from a monk in Strathclyde actually states, and I quote, upon witnessing the great battle between the Picts of the far north and the people of the Britons of Strathclyde, our forces that rallied underneath the banner once were a great many men dressed in hauberks of mail, now sundered asunder, as only 1 in every 5 wore their mail. So this technically gives us an account that best explains that one, they started to lose their equipment. The only way you could tell if they were a Teulu or not was one, the sword. And this was becoming very rare. Why, you might ask? Kind of obvious. This sword started to change over and over again. And unfortunately, even started to get smaller from this size to about, that's about right, to a more short sword size. This is because of money. Money is, because one, this had to be passed down from father to son, and if my father lost us in battle or whatever, guess what? We had to now pay for a new one. But the thing is, if you lost a battle, guess what? All that equipment is going to go somewhere else. So, what happened to the Teulu over the centuries? Well, don't start losing your hopes thinking that they all died off. In fact, the accounts of the Teulu still stay around up until the timeline of the later 13th century. So, in doing so, the Teulu still were around, but not as big as they once were. In other words, their equipment would drastically change. In fact, many accounts even state that even Teulu warriors like this, that looked just like this, ended up being, well, officers or sergeants in the militia units, which we will do a video on very soon. So many of y'all are going to probably ask this one though, but Templar, if these units were so rare to see on the battlefield, then why by the late century do we still hear about them? Well, that's because one, there are still accounts of the Teulu from later centuries. The problem is though, is that they were getting a lot rarer to see. And the fact is, Teulu is the Welsh word for family, or I don't know how you all in Wales spell it or pronounce it, Talali, Talatu, but the fact is, Welsh warriors like this would later become the Welsh Knights, or Britannic Knights of old. Over time though, they would slowly disappear into memory and legend, and the time of King Arthur is probably one of the most badass versions of them. But what do y'all think? Do you think that that the Britons with the Teulu were more badass in their early period or more badass in their later period? I'd like to hear y'all's comments down below. But yes, we will be getting into various other videos, such as with our Roman Briton Cataphractarii, the levy units, the light cavalry, and as well, even archers. So, stay tuned for more. Anyways guys, this has been Celtic Templar. Hope to see y'all in the next one. Have a great day, y'all.